Welcome to Crimson Guitars, welcome to the MF Kit Build, taking a great kit guitar and making it awesome. I am struggling to unclamp this vise. We're in progress. If you have been watching this series from the beginning, that's awesome, thank you very much, you know where we're at. If you haven't, well, this is a spoiler. You've got to go back and watch it from the beginning, damn it. Also, if you're watching this in July 2018, you can win this guitar. I'm going to stop talking now because this is the first time I've actually held it as a guitar, and I'm in love. The neck is glued in. It is nice and solid and done and dusted, and I need to fix the sound holes a little bit. They're not looking quite as I want. I've got some lovely metallic varnish. It's blue, of course, and apply oil, fine sand, fret level, put hardware in, all of that. We've got another couple of videos coming, at least. So without further ado, let's get building. I've probably got sanding to do, really. I've sanded the whole guitar down. I've sanded the back and the neck down. The rest of it's fine. I'm going to... People have been asking in the comments as I build this thing whether I'm going to do any staining on the back or on the mahogany to show how that would react. I am going to stain the neck. I think I'm going to leave the body. I don't want too many colours and too many things happening, but a nice dark neck is always attractive. So we're going to do that in a minute. Essentially, I've gone through to 320 grit across the board, really, and we'll see. Now, once I've stained the neck, I don't want to apply oil too soon, so I'm going to stain the neck, and then it's time to do a fret job. So the bulk of this video is actually going to be leveling frets. So, onwards. Stain. Let's start with stain. I'm going to go with black rather than the blue. I'm sticking with the spirit-based stain. Simply because that's what I have in my workshop. We also do make a very nice water-based stain. In fact, that was the I really like this. I think I'm going to have to do the whole body as well. Damn it. Yeah. Yeah, the water-based stains have been the staple stains that we've used for a number of years now, and we've only just finished developing and have released the spirit-based, which is why I'm not 100% au fait with how they work yet, or how they react. I have less experience with them. Now, since I've decided to do the whole guitar because that just looks so cool, I do have a slight problem with the bevels on the front where I've carved through to the sapele. Look at that. Okay, I have these bevels and I need to sort them out. The problem is I've obviously applied a little bit of oil on already, just a single coat. I will very carefully sand that back and then very carefully apply more stains. So there we go. Looking good though. 320 grit, sandpaper, and a little bit of patience. Alrighty then, so what do you think? I think I'm in love. I still need to make back plates. The material has been processed, it's down there, right thickness. Let's get on with the build. Fret leveling, this is the specialist part of the job. Everything else can be done with woodworking tools for the most part, but fret leveling, there are a few things that I would not be without. I'm biased, I own Crimson Guitars, we make these tools, but we make them because they were hard to find in the quality level that I require. And now, we're one of the top companies in the world doing it. Anyway, besides the point, we require not straight edge, fret rocker, fret crowning file, a fret leveling file or a fret leveling beam, one of the two. Hell, we'll put this in a list below with links to our website where you can purchase these things and potentially win this guitar if you're buying them in July 2018 and can win this guitar. But anyway, so I've got to leveling file or leveling beam. I'll be using a beam today. Masking tape. Fret end dressing file, I've already said that. Notched straight edge. This is the tool. Fret rocker, not straight edge. The very first process is to use this to make absolutely certain that your neck is flat. And that's the neck rather than the frets. I could put a straight edge over the frets and get an idea of whether the neck itself is straight. But yeah, it has to be absolutely perfect. Oh, I'm sitting on an open drawer behind me. This is a bad thing. Allen key to adjust the truss rod. Okay, the neck is flat. There's no gap between the teeth that are sitting on the fretboard rather than on the frets. And that is what we want. Now, at this stage, you can either mask up the fretboard, masking tape, or round the fret ends over. I would say that the best thing to do is actually get the fret end dressing file, round the fret ends over, polish them to the final bit, and then you move on to actually leveling the frets. It's less problematic that way. So I'm going to take this. It's perfectly flat on one side, slightly rounded on the other, and it allows you to nip the ends of the frets off and then round them over without doing too much damage, if any, to the fretboard. So first of all, I'll nip the ends off flat, like so. And then I'll flip it over to the rounded side. And I'm rounding the frets over. And this makes it more comfortable as you play. a little bit more difficult in this area. Even more to do. There's a whole other side. Oh my gosh. Some 240 grit paper wrapped around a finger or the handle of a tool. This is rounding the side of the fretboard off a little bit and also rounding over the ends of the frets and polishing them. We'll then follow that up with 320 to 600 to probably even 800 or so, wet and dry. Now at this point, you really need to think about protecting your guitar, don't you? This bit here, you might have noticed earlier I was filing very carefully. I wanted to know exactly where that was. I don't want to become complacent. Now, using sandpaper, however, yeah, it's easy to mess up. I'm going to mask that off with the aforementioned masking tape. I am not burnishing this down very quickly. I've only got a single coat of oil, really, over this stain. Anyway, that is enough to protect us. Fret rubbers. Rubber with silicon carbide grit impregnated into it. Perfect for polishing frets and fret ends. The nice thing about these is they are flexible and go around corners and edges and stuff, which is much more difficult with the sandpaper. I'm having to roll it very carefully. It's annoying. Medium. I'm actually holding this at an angle. Fine, and super fine. All right, so the fret ends are done, and the reason I've done this is once the fretboard is masked off, you can't actually access the entirety of the fret end. It makes polishing more difficult. There is always the chance now that in the next stage of the fret leveling job, I am going to mess this up and slip and scratch a fret end, which would be sad. You can't really see how shiny they are. There we go. But it's a risk worth taking. I just feel more comfortable with the guitar facing in playing direction. It's, yeah, habit. Scobble. At this point, if I'd gone in with the notch straight edge, I've got various levels of masking tape, and I wouldn't have been able to gauge how level the actual neck was. Permanent marker along the top of each fret. Next up, leveling beam. This has got 320 grit paper on it, which is relatively coarse, It depends on how much you think you're going to have to take off, and also whether you can be bothered to change the paper that's on the leveling beam to start with. The longer the beam, the better. Essentially, the closer to the length of the fretboard, the better for this particular job. We do them 16-inch, 12-inch, 8-inch lengths. In fact, I've got an offcut somewhere that is 3 inches, and I use that every now and then for little jobs. They're surprisingly useful tools. Now, the method is fairly important. You, across the board, and this is whether you're using a chisel or a hand plane or a fine saw or a cheap saw, if you find yourself tensing up and using what little muscles you have, you Weasley workshop, I'm trying to avoid alliteration, if you know what I mean. Anyway, if you find yourself using muscles and really pushing into whatever you're working with, then the tool you're working with either is the wrong tool or it's not sharp enough. Every single, it counts if you're a chef, if you're in the kitchen. If you're really pushing hard with your chef's knife, it needs to be sharpened, because you're going to slip at some point, it's not going to cut properly, and you're going to take a finger off. The same thing goes, especially if you're doing frets. We have a neck here. It's relatively flexible, not very, but relatively. And as I'm leveling the frets, if I put weight down, I'm going to move the neck as I go past, and I'm going to end up with frets that aren't level at the end, because you take the pressure off and the neck bounces back. That was a very long-winded way to both insult you and teach you something that you probably knew already. Anyway, leveling beam, we know that the neck is level. Very gently. And I'm taking off. There you go. You can see that I've barely taken anything off the top of that fret. So there's some variation in the frets. Not very much. You probably wouldn't even notice it if you're playing. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but it is minor. We want to get that absolutely perfect though. And we want to keep this even across the width of the fretboard. Okay, now my guitar's trying to move. You might find it more comfortable moving just one way. I certainly do. And you can see that I'm also sanding parallel to the center line of the guitar. This is because this guitar comes with a 12-inch radius. If we wanted a compound radius, we would go conically, so parallel to the strings rather than the center line. And this is where the fret rocker comes in. It's all well and good doing this and visually thinking that you've got it all accurate and nice. We move. The way you move your body changes how you use the leveling beam or leveling file. You might be putting a twist into it. The fret rocker is a mini straight edge with 4 different sizes. It goes down to mandolin. And that means you can check see whether the middle fret is rocking, or if it rocks on a fret. And you go down through the various size sections, and yeah, you can double check. Obviously I've now shown you how it works, but I need to check it again because I haven't done it properly. So, see if there's any high or low spots, diagnose, and then, ooh, yes, we have a low spot just there. Yeah, and I can see that well. So I have a little bit more material to remove. I'm going to do so. You don't have to watch if you don't want to. Okay, well, we go back. Those frets are leveled. Now we need to go on to the crowning process, which is as essential as everything else about this process. Basically, at the moment, the tops of the frets are, for the most part, fairly flat. And that means that the intonation point has moved from the center of the fret to the rear end, the bridge side edge of it, shall we say. And we want the point to be bang in the middle and relatively fine as well. Out with the crowning file of excellence. And well, it doesn't matter where I start really. You're looking at this one here, so let's have a go. This also has precision ground and polished safe edges. So essentially, I normally double mask it off, and you can see I've just started going through. Not enough to damage the fretboard, but enough to be wary. Now, you can see here how fine I want the line in the center of the fret to be. I have a few more frets to do, so all right, now that's done. Well, here's the close-up. You'll notice there was some tear out of the masking tape. Whatever you do, we have little bits of filings from the frets, and every now and then one of those catches underneath the file and just rips the paper out. This is why we mask it off. It's there's no way to avoid that every now and then, as you can see. Anyhow, next stage is to polish the frets, really. And there are many, many different ways to do that. I tend to start out with about 400 or 600 grit wet and dry paper, and then move on to fret rubbers, because these little things are just awesome. You could, if you have a workshop, you could, and we tend to do this on all the production guitars, get a bench grinder with a polishing mop on it and use that with Jeweler's Rouge or something like that. It's scary as all hell, but by gum, it gets you polished frets and fast. But if you're working at home, you have a small workshop, you don't have bench grinders and polishing mops and Jeweler's Rouge and all that jazz, yeah, this is as good a method as any. A difficult part of polishing frets is the sides. It's just awkward, which is why fret rubbers are so good. Now, what I tend to do is I will start with 400 grit or 600 grit wet and dry paper, and I wrap that around a fret rubber, and that gives a relatively flexible support to the paper, but also allows you to get in on the edges of the fret. And it really is very, very important to have these frets polished as much as possible. A shiny, polished, ultra slick fret makes for a much more playable guitar. And I mean, this is something that you can do on your guitars. It's a cheap, quick way of improving the playability of pretty much any guitar that's been around for a while. Now that just needs to be the same length as the fret so I don't go over the edge and damage the guitar at all. And this is getting rid of the file marks. Once we've done that, then it's a simple case of flipping over to the fret rubbers and polishing away. Although that's jumping a gun at the moment. I also do need to do the top of that fret. So, no file marks left, on to the next. Once you've got to the stage where you've got rid of all of the file marks, it is a very, very good idea to double check and make sure that you haven't inadvertently removed enough material to create a high or a low spot. Well, to create a low spot. The fret rocker is pretty much the most important part. It's the most important tool. If you disagree, let me know in the comments below. Can you hear that? I actually do have, and this is a perfect object lesson, I do have a fret that is either high or low, and I need to figure that out. Yep, that fret there, she's low. So I'm going to get a smaller leveling beam now and put in a little bit of fall away at the end. And I'm also going to use finer paper because polishing frets by hand just sucks a bit, really. So fall away is when, from around about the 12th fret or the 14th fret, the leveling falls down, and that just creates a better feel to an instrument. It's not something it's something we do all the time at Crimson, but it's not absolutely necessary. Yeah, that's the low one there. Okay, masking tape. There we go. There's always more. There's a strip of masking tape on here, and essentially I'm putting a minuscule angle. I've removed the permanent marker. Haha! And we've got rid of the rock. It is now back to crowning and polishing. And you've seen all that before, so we're going to speed through that. And that is that part of that job done. Onto the fret rubbers themselves. You can use them flat, you can use them standing up, going with the grain, going with the length of the fret. It's entirely up to you. One trick is to not grip it too tight, because that's a good way to give yourself cramp. It's applicable to so many activities. We're on medium fret rubber, sorry. And I am going with the length of the fret, obviously. I will move on to the fine, which I will hold flat and go along the fretboard, and then the super fine, and I will go back this way. And we'll see we'll see what the frets look like in a little while. Well, that was fun, wasn't it? Now, here we go. It's always difficult to film frets and shiny things. This is what they look like now, after a little bit of elbow grease. And that is what they looked like after the wet and dry sandpaper. So I now have one more fret to do, and then the masking tape comes off. This is 100% achievable. Anyone can do it. Fretboard cleanup. And this is the fretboard restorative. There are no petroleum byproducts in this oil. So if I was about to put the strings on, I would leave this to soak in for a little while. This is only an initial protective layer. I'm going to go back on and put more of the fretboard oil and restorative at a later date. So the excess comes straight off. I'm very happy with this. There we go. Did you spot the flame in the ebony on this fretboard? You see that? That's insane. I was planning that this video would be more processes. I was going to apply oil and... No, it's too late. It's too late in the evening. I was going to apply oil. I was going to play around with some metallic blue lacquer in places, but that is going to have to wait till the next episode. Thank you for watching. I'm sorry that this episode was particularly full of Crimson Guitars products. This is kind of where we began, and where our forte is, fret leveling. Check out the fret leveling kit. Check out crimsonguitars.com. And don't forget, if you're watching this in July, you can win the guitar. I'm a little bit knackered now. Yesterday I had a birthday party for my 4-year-old son. Followed an hour later by a birthday party for my 9-year-old son. I'm so tired I forgot that he's 8, not 9. Anyway, thank you for watching. Thank you for being amazing. I will be back soon with another video. click like and subscribe and all that jazz. I don't know why I'm walking over here. I just happen to be. Yeah. What do you think of my my weight? That keeps the tripod stable. Look at this damn guitar. You know you want it. Comment below. Goodbye.